The wind screamed across the frozen land. Snow fell from the black sky, thick and heavy, covering the ground in white layers that swallowed every sound. A lone human walked through this wasteland, his boots sinking deep into the ice. His breath came out in clouds, fading quickly into the storm. He pulled his coat tighter around himself, but the cold still bit his skin like sharp teeth. He had been walking for hours, maybe days. Time was strange here. His legs ached, his fingers were numb, and his mind told him to keep moving or he would freeze. Nothing survived in this kind of cold. At least that was what he thought. Then, through the roar of the wind, he heard something impossible. A voice. At first it was faint, almost lost in the storm. He thought it was the wind playing tricks on him, but then he heard it again. A cry, high and weak, please help. The human froze in his steps. His heart pounded. No one should be here. No one could live in this frozen place. Yet the voice was real. He followed the sound, his boots crunching faster until he saw a small figure in the snow. It was a child. Not human. Her skin glowed faintly blue in the moonlight, her eyes wide and full of tears that froze on her cheeks. She was kneeling in the snow beside a larger body lying still. The girl looked up when she saw him. Her lips trembled. Her hands shook as she clutched the still body. "Human, please help, my mom is dying from the cold." The human stared. His mind told him to walk away. This was not his fight. Helping strangers out here meant death. But his heart would not let him move. The girl's eyes were desperate, filled with fear that no child should carry. He stepped closer. The woman on the ground was clearly her mother. Her skin was pale, lips turning blue, chest rising so faintly it was almost invisible. She was dying. The girl grabbed the human's sleeve with both hands. Her small fingers were like ice. "Please, don't leave us. Everyone else did. You are the only one here. If you walk away, she will die." The human looked around. The snowstorm showed no mercy. Wolves lived in this land. He had heard them howling last night. The smell of weakness and death would bring them soon. If he stayed here too long, he would die as well, but he could not pull his arm free. The child's grip was weak, but her eyes held him like chains. He knelt beside the mother. Her breathing was shallow. He touched her face. It was like touching stone. She had only minutes, maybe less. He thought of leaving. He thought of survival. But then he saw the child again. Her thin shoulders shook. Her tears froze in the snow. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, human, don't let my mom die." Something inside him broke. He pulled off his coat and wrapped it around the alien woman. The freezing air cut at his body, but the mother's chest rose just a little deeper when wrapped in warmth. The girl's eyes widened with hope. The human knew he could not save them here in the open. He looked at the horizon, but all he saw was endless white. His mind screamed at him to choose, keep walking and save himself, or carry them and risk everything. He bent down, lifted the mother onto his back, and almost collapsed under the weight. His body burned from the cold, his muscles ached, but he forced himself to stand. "Show me," he said to the girl, his voice rough. "Where is shelter?" The girl's face lit with fragile hope. She pointed with a trembling hand toward a line of black rocks in the distance. The human took his first step into the snow, carrying death and life on his back while the child stumbled beside him. Behind them, the wind shifted. A long, low howl rose in the distance. The wolves had caught the scent, and the night had only just begun. The human's breath came in short, burning clouds as he stumbled forward through the snow. The alien woman was heavy on his back, her body limp, her skin cold as ice. Every step felt like dragging a mountain, but still, he moved. Beside him, the little alien girl clutched his arm tightly, guiding him toward the rocks in the distance. The storm howled around them. Snow stung his face like sharp knives. The ground was uneven, and more than once he nearly fell. Each time the child's frightened voice pulled him back. "Please, don't stop. She's still breathing. She has to live." The human looked over his shoulder at the alien mother. Her lips were pale blue, her eyelids closed, her breath weak and shallow. She was slipping away. He tightened his hold and pushed forward. His muscles screamed. His lungs burned, but the thought of leaving her was impossible now. Finally, the dark rocks rose higher before them. A narrow crack between two cliffs led into a hidden hollow. The child pointed. There, inside. I used to hide here from the hunters. The human ducked into the gap, his shoulders brushing stone. The wind died away, replaced by silence. Snow swirled outside, but inside the hollow there was at least some shelter. He laid the alien mother carefully on the ground. She looked fragile, like glass about to break. Her chest rose weakly, then stopped for a heartbeat, then rose again. The girl fell to her knees beside her mother, tears rolling down her blue cheeks. Human, can you save her? Please, please tell me she won't die. The human swallowed. He had no blanket, no fire, only the coat he had wrapped around the mother. His own body shook with cold, but he forced his mind to think. We need warmth, he muttered. A fire, something to cover her. He looked around the cave. The walls dripped with frozen water. The ground was damp stone, no wood, no fuel. The girl crawled closer, tugging his sleeve. There is dry moss near the rocks outside. I used it before. But the wolves, they come when they smell weakness. The human's jaw tightened. He had heard the howl earlier. The wolves were close, hunting. He stood. Stay here. Don't make a sound. Keep her breathing. The child's eyes widened in fear. No, they'll find you. But he was already moving. He pushed out into the storm again, scanning the rocks with sharp eyes. His fingers brushed the ground until he found it, a patch of brittle, dry moss clinging to stone. He ripped it free and stuffed it under his shirt. He searched for more, gathering whatever the frozen land would give him. Then a sound froze his blood. A low growl. He turned his head. At the edge of the storm, glowing eyes watched him. Yellow, hungry, patient. A wolf. Its body black against the snow. Its ears twitched, its nose lifted, catching his scent. Another growl joined the first. Then another. The human gritted his teeth and backed toward the cave. His knife felt small in his shaking hand. The wolves padded closer, their paws silent in the snow. Then, from inside the hollow, the little girl screamed, Human! Hurry! Her breathing is stopping. The human's heart slammed in his chest. He lunged back into the crack between the rocks, the wolves following, their shadows stretching long in the storm. Inside, he dropped the moss to the ground and struck his flint desperately. Sparks flew but died. His hands shook too much. The girl sobbed, clutching her mother's cold hand. She's not moving. The human's eyes blazed with determination. He struck again, harder, faster. Sparks caught. A small flame licked at the moss. The wolves growled outside, pacing in the snow, their eyes glowing like fire in the dark. The human cupped the flame, feeding it with dry scraps until a fire roared to life. Heat spread slowly through the hollow, driving back the deadly cold. The alien mother's lips trembled. A faint breath escaped her chest, longer and deeper than before. The girl gasped, her eyes wide with hope. She's still here. The human sat back, sweat mixing with snow on his face. His knife was still in his hand, ready for the wolves, his body shaking from cold and exhaustion. But the mother breathed. For now, life remained in his hands. And outside, the wolves waited for their chance. The fire crackled weakly at first, sending thin threads of smoke into the cold air. The human bent low, shielding the flames with his hands, feeding them scraps of moss, bits of bark, and anything dry he could find. Slowly, the fire grew stronger, pushing the darkness back. Warmth spread through the hollow. The girl pressed closer, her small hands outstretched toward the fire. Her mother lay beside it, wrapped in the human's coat. Her lips were still blue, her chest still shallow, but the heat gave her a fighting chance. The human's face glistened with sweat despite the freezing air outside. His eyes never left the entrance of the cave. Out there, beyond the stone walls, the wolves prowled. He could hear them. Low growls, soft paws crunching the snow, teeth snapping in the dark. They had not gone. They were waiting. The little girl noticed his stare and shivered. They don't give up. she whispered. When they smell death, they wait until it comes. The human's grip tightened around his knife. His body trembled from cold and exhaustion, but his spirit held firm. He had chosen this path. Now he had to walk it until the end. He crouched beside the mother. Her eyes fluttered just for a moment, then closed again. She whispered something faint in her alien tongue. The human couldn't understand the words, but the child's head snapped up. She said, "Don't let them take me." Tears welled in the girl's eyes. "She's afraid the hunters will find us." The human frowned. Hunters? He thought only of wolves. But now, a deeper danger echoed in his mind. "Hunters?" he asked. The girl nodded, fear twisting her small face. "Men from the clans, they hunt us because of her. Because she fought them. Because she knows secrets." The human's stomach turned. He looked again at the unconscious mother. Who was she really? What kind of secrets could make her hunted even in this frozen wasteland? Before he could ask more, a sharp sound cut through the storm. A howl. Long, loud, closer than before. The human stiffened. The girl grabbed his arm. The firelight flickered against the stone walls, casting strange shapes. Then faint footsteps, careful, slow, moving outside the entrance. The wolves had circled closer. The human rose, standing between the fire and the mouth of the cave. His knife looked small in his fist, but his stance was firm. He would not let them pass. The girl clutched her mother's hand, whispering prayers in her alien tongue. Her eyes never left the human, as if his courage alone could keep them safe. Shadows moved outside. 2 glowing eyes appeared, then another pair, then another. The wolves stood at the edge of the storm, their fur bristling, their teeth flashing in the firelight. One stepped forward, its growl vibrating in the stones. The human raised his knife higher. His breath came slow and steady now. "Come then," he muttered. The wolves crept closer. The human's heart pounded like thunder. His body was weak, but his will burned hotter than the fire. Suddenly, the mother coughed violently. Her body shook as if pulled back from death itself. The sound startled the wolves, but it also gave them hope. The prey was alive. The girl cried out, pressing close to her mother. "She's breathing again." The wolves snarled, their hunger growing. They stepped forward, one paw at a time. The human knew he couldn't fight them all. Not with only a knife, not in his condition. But he also knew he couldn't let them pass. He grabbed a burning branch from the fire. Flames licked up into the air, throwing sparks against the cave walls. He waved it at the wolves, shouting with all his strength, "Back!" The wolves flinched, retreating a step. Their glowing eyes narrowed. They weren't afraid of him, but they feared the fire. The human held the torch high, his knife ready in the other hand. The wolves growled and paced, circling but never entering. For now the fire had drawn a line they would not cross. The girl hugged her mother tightly, tears on her cheeks. The human stood tall, fire blazing in his hand, shadows dancing around him. The storm howled outside. The wolves waited and the night dragged on. But inside the hollow, against all odds, life clung to a fragile flame. The fire's glow painted the cave walls in orange and gold. But it could not erase the fear in the girl's eyes. She sat close to her mother, clutching the woman's cold hand. The human fed more moss into the flames, watching the sparks rise. Every crackle of the fire was answered by the growl of a wolf outside. They were still waiting. The human's muscles ached, but his mind could not rest. He studied the alien mother's face. Even in weakness, there was strength hidden there. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw marked by old scars, and skin that bore faint lines like tattoos. She was no ordinary wanderer. Her lips moved again. A whisper escaped, soft and broken, but this time the human understood. "Don't let them find us." The words were in his own language. He froze. The girl's eyes widened. "She spoke to you. How do you know her words?" "I should ask you that," the human said slowly, staring down at the unconscious woman. "How does she know mine?" The girl bit her lip. For a long time she said nothing, as if deciding whether to trust him. Finally she whispered, "Because she lived among humans once. Long ago. She learned their speech, their ways. She loved one of your kind." The human's chest tightened. That explained the strange familiarity in her face, the way her voice reached him even in weakness. But it also raised new questions. Why are you running? Who hunts you? The child's small body trembled. She looked at her mother. then at the human as though the truth itself might break them both. My mother was a warrior of the clans. She fought for freedom, for those who were slaves to the lords. She turned against them, and they never forgave her. The human frowned. He had heard whispers in the colonies about the alien clans, about their cruelty, their endless hunger for power. But here was a woman who had resisted them, a warrior hunted by her own people. The girl lowered her voice, her words almost a sob. They call her a traitor. They say she must die and that I must be taken. I don't know why. But she always told me, never let them take you alive. The cave grew colder despite the fire. The human felt the weight of the truth pressing down on him. He was no longer just helping a sick woman and her child. He had stepped into the middle of a war he did not understand. He opened his mouth to speak, but the mother's eyes flickered open. For the first time, she looked directly at him. Her gaze was weak yet sharp, as if piercing straight into his soul. You, she whispered, her voice a rasp. Why do you help us? The human hesitated. He had no clear answer. He only knew that walking away had been impossible. Because no one else would, he said at last, her lips curved just slightly. Humans are always surprising. Before he could ask her more, a sound echoed from outside. Not the growl of wolves this time, but the crunch of boots in snow. Heavy steps. Voices calling in a language he didn't know. The girl stiffened. Her face turned white with fear. They're here, she whispered. The hunters. The human rose at once, knife in hand, his body tense. The firelight threw long shadows against the stone walls as footsteps drew closer. The mother's hand clutched his sleeve with surprising strength. Her eyes burned with sudden fire. Listen, she gasped. If they take her, she is lost. Promise me, human, protect my daughter, even if I fall. The human's chest tightened. He looked at the trembling girl, then at the dying warrior. Outside, the voices grew louder. Torchlight flickered against the storm. The hunters had found their trail. The human's hand tightened on his knife. His heart pounded like war drums. The night was no longer about survival, it was about a fight he could not run from. And in the cold, the secret war of a hunted warrior had just become his own. The fire snapped and hissed, but its warmth could no longer comfort them. Heavy footsteps crunched in the snow outside, steady and deliberate. The low growls of wolves faded away, replaced by deeper, harsher voices. The hunters had come. The little alien girl pressed herself against her mother, her wide eyes reflecting the flickering fire. She whispered, trembling, "They found us. They never stop." The human crouched low, gripping his knife. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, each thump louder than the storm itself. He edged closer to the mouth of the hollow, peering through a crack in the rocks. Shapes moved in the snow, tall figures wrapped in fur and armor, carrying long spears tipped with metal that gleamed even in the storm. Their torches burned bright, stabbing against the darkness. At least 4 of them, maybe more. Their language was sharp and harsh, echoing like broken glass. The human's stomach tightened. These were no simple raiders. Their movements were too disciplined, too careful. They were soldiers, trained hunters who had chased prey across many winters. One of them raised his torch and shouted. The sound echoed across the rocks, a signal. Another answered from farther away. The cave was surrounded. The girl whimpered softly. They want her alive, but they will kill you. The human looked back at the mother. She lay still, weak but awake, her sharp eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. She met his gaze and whispered, "Do not let them see her. If they take her, she is lost." The human nodded. He pulled the girl close, pressing a finger to his lips. "Quiet, no matter what." Her small head bobbed, tears shining in her eyes. The hunters' voices grew closer. Snow crunched beneath their boots. Shadows stretched across the mouth of the cave. Then silence. The human's breath caught. He pressed his back against the stone wall, knife ready. A torch flared. One of the hunters stepped inside. He was massive, his shoulders wide as a doorframe, his eyes glowing faint yellow in the dark. He sniffed the air, his head turning slowly. The firelight danced on the blade strapped across his chest. The human froze. His muscles screamed to move, but he stayed still, hidden in the deeper shadows. The hunter took another step. The girl gasped, too loud. The sound cut through the hollow like a blade. The hunter's head snapped toward the noise. His eyes locked on them. He growled, raising his spear. The human lunged, his knife slashed through the dark, striking the hunter's arm. The alien roared, dropping the torch, but he swung back with terrifying strength. The spear's shaft cracked against the stone, spraying sparks. The girl screamed. The mother tried to rise, but her body betrayed her, falling back. The human pressed forward, fighting with desperation. His knife stabbed again, scraping against armor. The hunter snarled, shoving him back. The human hit the wall hard, the wind knocked out of him. More shadows moved at the entrance. More hunters were coming. The human scrambled up, gripping his knife tighter. His chest burned, his breath ragged, but his eyes blazed. He would not let them touch the girl. The hunter roared and charged, spear raised high. The human ducked, rolling aside. The spear slammed into the ground, sparks flying. In that instant, the human drove his knife upward, slashing across the hunter's shoulder. The alien howled, stumbling back. The other hunters called out, their voices echoing. The human stood over the girl and her mother, knife dripping, his chest rising and falling with fury. His body was weak, but his spirit burned like fire. The girl clung to her mother, whispering prayers. The hunters outside were closing in. The human knew he could not win this fight. Not with only a knife, but he also knew one truth. They would have to kill him before they ever laid a hand on the child. And as the firelight flickered against the cave walls, the battle for their lives began. The cave burned with chaos. The firelight threw wild shadows on the stone walls as the human squared his shoulders, gripping his small knife. The first hunter staggered back, wounded, but his roar summoned the others. Heavy boots pounded against the snow outside. More shadows crowded the cave's mouth. The little alien girl held her mother tight, her eyes wide with terror. She whispered, "Human, you can't fight them all." The human's chest heaved, but his voice was steady. "Then they'll learn I won't fall easy." The second hunter entered, taller than the first, carrying a blade carved from bone. His eyes glowed in the firelight, cold and merciless. He sneered at the human, as if amused by the challenge. The first hunter, blood running down his arm, growled something in their harsh tongue. The second nodded and raised his weapon. Together they moved in. The human shifted his stance. He had no armor, no shield, only his will. The second hunter struck first, swinging his bone blade in a wide arc. The human ducked low, the blade slicing air just above his head. He rolled forward, stabbing upward. His knife cut into the hunter's leg. The alien roared, kicking him back hard. Pain exploded in the human's ribs as he slammed against the wall. His vision blurred. His knife nearly slipped from his hand. But he forced himself up. The girl cried out, "Please stop. He's trying to save us." The hunters only laughed, their voices cruel and sharp. The wounded one stepped aside, holding his arm. The second advanced, smiling like a predator playing with prey. The human raised his knife again. His body trembled, but his eyes locked on the enemy. "You want me? Then step through me." The hunter lunged. Their weapons clashed, knife against bone. Sparks lit the cave. The human's arms shook under the force. The hunter pushed him back inch by inch. The girl screamed, covering her face. The mother, weak but awake, tried to move, but her body failed her. She collapsed back, her eyes blazing with fury at her own weakness. The hunter snarled and swung again. The human caught the strike on his arm. Pain seared through him. But he stabbed forward with his knife. Cutting deep into the alien's side, the hunter bellowed, staggering. The human pressed the attack, every strike fueled by desperation. He slashed, ducked, stabbed, and fought with everything left in him. His body screamed to stop, but his heart roared louder. The second hunter stumbled, clutching his wound. The first shouted, calling for the others. More footsteps thundered outside. The human's chest rose and fell. His knife dripped. His arms shook. He was outnumbered, outmatched, but still he stood in front of the girl and her mother, a wall of flesh and will. The next hunter appeared at the cave's mouth, torchlight behind him. Another shadow followed. Two more, the girl sobbed. "There are too many." "You'll die!" The human swallowed, tasting blood. He looked at her terrified eyes, at the weak hand of her mother clutching the ground. Then he smiled, though his face was pale. "Maybe, but not before I make them bleed." The hunters roared and rushed in together. The human met them head on. His knife slashed, his fist struck, his body moved with wild defiance. They battered him with spears and blades, blows raining like thunder. Blood streaked his arms, his side, but he refused to fall. One hunter shouted in rage as the human's knife cut across his face. Another stumbled from a hard kick to the chest. For every wound he took, the human gave one back. The cave rang with screams, roars, and the clash of steel. The little girl covered her ears, trembling, but her eyes peeked through her fingers, watching the impossible. The human stood like a storm, broken yet unbroken, holding the line with nothing but his will. And then, when his strength began to fail, when the hunters pressed close for the kill, a voice cut through the chaos, a woman's voice. Enough! The alien mother had risen, her body trembling but her eyes blazing like fire. Her hand gripped a fallen spear, and though her legs shook, her presence filled the cave. The hunters froze, stunned, and the human, bloodied but still standing, turned his head. The warrior within her had awakened. The cave fell silent for a heartbeat. The hunter stared in shock at the alien mother standing with the spear in her trembling hand. Her body was weak, but her eyes burned with the fire of someone who had once led warriors into battle. The little girl gasped. "Mama!" The human, blood dripping from his arm, lowered his knife for just a moment. He had fought with everything inside him, but now he saw that he was not alone. The mother tightened her grip on the spear. "You came for prey," she rasped, her voice echoing against the stone. "But you will leave with nothing." The hunters growled, their teeth flashing. The leader stepped forward, his armor covered in fur, his torch casting his shadow across the wall. He pointed his blade at her. "Traitor, you should have died long ago." Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "I did die long ago. What stands before you is only fury." Then she lunged. Her spear moved with sudden speed, striking the leader across the chest. He staggered back, roaring. The other hunters rushed in, but now the human was beside her. His knife slashed, his fist struck, his body moved like a man possessed. Together they fought. The girl clutched the firewood, feeding the flames, keeping the light strong. The wolves outside howled, but they did not enter. Inside, steel clashed, blood spilled, and the air shook with cries of war. The human took a blow to his side, nearly dropping, but the mother caught him with her arm. "Stand," she ordered, her voice full of command. "They fear fire and courage, show them both." The human gritted his teeth and rose again. His knife stabbed into the leg of one hunter, who fell screaming. The mother spun her spear, striking another across the jaw. The cave filled with chaos, but slowly the tide began to turn. The hunters were fierce, but they had not expected resistance from prey. They had expected fear, not fury. And fear was beginning to spread among them now. Finally, the leader growled something harsh, his voice heavy with frustration. He barked an order, and the remaining hunters retreated toward the snow. Their torches disappeared into the storm. Silence fell again, broken only by heavy breaths. The human dropped to one knee, his body trembling, his knife slick with blood. The mother leaned on the spear, her chest heaving, sweat shining on her pale skin. The girl ran forward, tears streaming, and threw her arms around them both. "You're alive!" "You saved us." The human gave a weak laugh, shaking his head. "Alive, for now." The mother's sharp eyes turned to him. She touched his shoulder with a hand still strong despite her weakness. "You had no reason to fight for us. Yet you did. That cannot be forgotten." The human met her gaze. "I couldn't let them take her. Or you." For the first time, her hard expression softened. She nodded slowly. "Then hear me, human. Saving us has bound you to us. The clans will not stop. They will come again. You are marked now, hunted like us." The weight of her words hung heavy in the cave. The human looked at the girl, clinging to him with wide, grateful eyes, then at the horizon through the cave's crack where snow still fell without end. He knew she was right. His choice tonight had changed everything. The girl's small hand tugged at his sleeve. "Will you stay with us, please? You're the only one who cares." The human felt the ache in his bones, the sting of his wounds, and the cold air pressing in. Yet when he looked at her, he knew his answer. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'll stay. I'll protect you." The mother's eyes glimmered faintly in the firelight. "Then you are no longer just a wanderer. You are part of our fight." The human stood slowly, knife still in his hand. Beyond the cave, the storm raged, and somewhere in the darkness, hunters planned their return. But inside the hollow, the fire burned bright. The girl leaned against him, whispering, "You're our hero." He shook his head, his voice low but firm. "Not a hero, just a man who won't walk away." And as dawn broke at last, painting the frozen horizon in pale gold, the human knew this was only the beginning of a battle that would bind their fates forever.